Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eric Manahano. I'm with the Stanley Road History Program, University of Florida. Today is August 28, 2021, and I'm here with
Adina Peyton.
And we're here to speak about, with
Bradley Pugh.
And may you just explain who he was and where you're from?
I'm from Athens, Alabama. I live in Huntsville, Alabama, and that's where Brad was shot 16 times on November 17th, 2020.
May explain who he was?
Brad Pugh was my son. He was, I had him when I had just turned 17. I have one other child, and her name's Emily.
Wow. Just explain the incident with the department or
Sure.
Anything.
Brad, because I had him early in my life and very young, I was an alcoholic and then got into recovery, and so he struggled from the time he was probably 14 with drugs and alcohol. But he had a psychotic break. He had become schizophrenic at times. So on the night of November 16th, he left my house and walked down the street and climbed on top of Ted's barbecue, and with an unloaded pistol in his waist pocket, and someone called the police, and that led to the whole entire police force and three TV stations. And by the early hours of the next morning, he had been shot 16 times.
Okay.
They were trying to talk him off the roof, and so he came down in the early, 2:30 in the morning. I was told that they had to call it, that he had been up there too long, so they lured him down with cigarettes and did not contain the perimeter. So when he came down the ladder thinking he was getting cigarettes and had calmed down, they beanbagged him and he ran.
May you explain more about the absence of him in your family or community?
My life blew up the minute that the police came and knocked on my door and said, "Did you realize your son is on the roof?" In a police standoff. It started that moment, and they didn't allow me to come. So the next couple hours were like something out of a movie.
Yeah.
And when they knocked on my door at 3 and told me that they had talked him down, but that he had run and there had been an accident and that he was gone, I can't even tell you what that did to my psyche. It felt like I couldn't breathe anymore. I didn't know what to do. I just felt like something was wrong, and I questioned it that night, and I felt this thing inside of me that something bad had happened to my son, and that the baton had been handed to me to expose that, just to expose it, just to know what happened, to know the truth.
Yeah.
And I've yet to get that truth.
And so, was there any accountability or a rally?
So I went to the city council 2 days later, not knowing even what I was doing. I took his urn. The coroner pressed for a quick cremation. My daughter and I had heard from neighbors, this only happened 3 blocks from my house, that it sounded like a firing squad had gone off. So I knew he had been shot a lot. So I went down and I had to interview the neighbors. I didn't tell them who I was, but I was on a local commercial. And so they said that it sounded like the 4th of July. So I said, well, where is all the blood? And they said, oh, they cleaned that up immediately before they even took the pictures, of whatever. They said they threw him in the ambulance. They reported that they took him to the hospital. They never moved, and we could only see his boots sticking out of the ambulance. I didn't know that he got shot 16 times until the autopsy came. So the coroner told my daughter, we asked if we could see my son, and they're like, no, you don't want to see him. And I said, well, how will I know how many times he was shot? We'll show you. The autopsy will show you. I said, will it show me the angle that he was shot? Oh, yeah. I said, and I can see that, right? I can see what was in his body, if he had any drugs. Oh, yeah. Well, that was 3.5 months, 4 months later, when nobody would put it on the news, nobody would put it in the newspaper. the autopsy came in, and I saw the 16 bullet holes. So because it would not get reported in a city as large as Huntsville, I started raising money through GoFundMe to put up billboards. But during this time, it was like a conspiracy. Like, nobody would listen to me. It was like it didn't happen. City council was like, oh, thank you for sharing. They got their lawyer, and they told him not to talk to me. So I couldn't find out anything about my son, and still really don't know a lot about it, except that he was shot 16 times, died on the scene, and I guess the autopsy shows the way that he died, but my life blew apart. People left me. People were uncomfortable being with me because my son had died, and I was so I live alone, so I was lonely. And then as I started having to fight city council, they turned against me, and it was a very rough time. I was not sure I was going to make it. It was very touch and go because I'm in recovery, but I made it through that time.
Okay.
And now I'm ready.
Thank you so much for sharing. I guess like any last statements or last personal like words.
I would just like to say, when you feel like something wrong has happened, trust your gut.
Yeah.
Even if everybody says you're wrong, you know what's right. It's something that God gave us within. And you may have to walk a very, very, very lonely road, but there's no other road to walk. There was no other road for me to walk but this one. And I'm grateful that I found the people here just to provide comfort.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.